because she's not that close.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah? Okay, cool. So let me mute this here real quick. Because if we don't mute it, you'll just hear an endless loop of you and me going back and forth. So
I see. Okay.
Right, so we are now live on Twitch, which is what I wanted. So good there. Oof, not good quality-wise, but it's fine. Okay, so how's your day been going?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. We're just working on the house a little bit. Some of the stuff that keeps falling off after every storm, you have to put it back together again. And yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's I don't know. The more I live in Galveston, the less I think the place is going to be here much longer. But
yeah, I mean, it seems like every year Galveston gets pummeled. I mean, if it's not a hurricane,
we lucked out so much this year, though.
Yeah.
The one storm, Hurricane Laura, that did not hit us, boy, did it just screwed up southern Louisiana badly.
Oh, wow.
And it was aimed at us for a long time, and then it moved. But anyway, you won't have to worry about that anyway where you are
now. No, I have other weather troubles.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
It's like...
Is it really freezing outside right now?
It's cold. Like, I would need a jacket and a scarf for this. But it's not freezing cold by Michigan standards, no.
Right.
Let's see. It's about 34 here.
Uh-huh.
So, like, it's cold for me because I'm not used to that. But for everyone else here, it's like, oh, this is like medium jacket weather.
You'll feel that way in a while.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, can you imagine if they were in Texas in July, what they would be feeling?
Oh, I mean, just death.
Yeah, really?
It's like July here was pretty bad for me. Just because it was. I'm used to 80 degrees, but it's hot here. It's like a different kind of heat up here.
Right.
So like I would walk outside and I'm like, well, it's still fucking hot no matter where I go. July is just hot.
Yeah. True. It is just hot. That's true.
Yeah, but I will say like the heat up here is nowhere near the heat in like August down in Houston. It is nowhere near that.
I don't wish that on anybody. Although I must say, I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, and it got to 115 quite often there. I mean, when they say dry heat, though, it is really dry. But it's still really hot, too.
Yeah.
And you don't go out in it. That's stupid. I mean, people that have to work outside, they don't work during the middle of the day. They split their day.
Yeah, it's... The heat down south is a different beast. There'd be days I would get in my car and I'd just be afraid to touch my steering wheel because I'm like, I know it's going to burn.
Yeah, or get your hands stuck to it.
Oh yeah, it's like even in the morning you could just feel the heat coming out just everywhere.
Yeah.
It was not ideal. Okay, so it is getting pretty close. We just started these, so we may have people trickle in. We may not. So we'll.
I understand.
We'll just kind of go with it and see what happens. And the good thing is, this is kind of. I mean, this will also work as like a podcast. So once it gets on YouTube, people can see it after the fact. And if anyone has questions or anything after that, they can send them to me, and I can. Send them to you, or we'll figure that part out. But I do want to post this on a couple of places, just to make sure.
Yeah, I asked the cover artist if she'd like to come into this too, but she's busy tonight and she couldn't, but she would like to sometime again.
Okay.
Just to hang out and see it, that's all. I mean, because she's real interested in what you're doing.
Okay. Well, I am definitely down. I'd love to talk with the cover artist uh, just on the ideas for the covers. I know you and I have talked in length, but just to kind of get the artist perspective on some of these because they're really good covers.
Yeah. Well, it was a collaboration with. I'll talk about that. That's something you can ask me.
Okay. All right. So I'm just finishing up posting this in a couple of channels, and let me shift this real quick. There we go.
I like that thing behind you, that cowboy hat wearing guy on the red,
Let's see.
or whatever that is. It's very cool looking.
That is a poster. It's a art piece from Ralph Steadman, the artist who did Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah. Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
okay.
And although you can't see it, I can definitely see it on my end. But above me is the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas centerpiece, so to speak. Just the image of the car driving down.
You're shorting out there.
Do what? Hello?
You are. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, so the internet might drop in and out, so that might just be something we'll have to just ask me again or something like that. Comcast is not the best.
Your audio and video aren't synced right now. Your audio and video aren't synced right now.
They're not? Okay. Let me just turn my...
No, they weren't. Now they are. Okay, but they weren't.
Okay.
Your audio was way ahead of your video for a minute there.
Okay.
You froze.
Okay. So that's just technical difficulties, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I was saying was, although you can't see it, I have the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas centerpiece, so to speak. So it's like Hunter S. Thompson driving in that red car with his lawyer on right next to him in the desert. I wish I had a copy of the book here. I don't have one. It's somewhere on one of our shelves. But I believe it's a cover piece. So
I have a Hunter S. Tomcat T-shirt. It's a cat. Hunter S. Thompson.
All right. So let's go on ahead and get started here. So let me pull up all the stuff we're talking about. As you can tell, this is a very informal kind of thing too. It's not very radio broadcasty or anything. So, but as we figure this out, this will get better. There we go. Okay, so I just pulled up just kind of what we've already talked about. So, I guess in a way of a bit of an intro to, there's no audience right now, but to any audience that listens in the future, I'm sitting down with John Sullivan, author of Bye Bye, No Fly Zone, and the forthcoming Dire Moon cartoons. And I'm actually going to toss it over to him, let him kind of give a brief intro and just kind of like a bio of his experience.
Hi, thank you very much, Weasel. Bio of my experience. Okay, I pretty much been doing all kinds of stuff in my life, but the most focused thing was theater and writing. And I've been doing theater and writing for 20-some years now. And I kind of let them bleed into one another, and that's where this whole idea of doing a poem script came from. And they cross-fertilize and cross-pollinate, and I think it creates an interesting hybrid experience. I was the artistic director of Theater Degree Zero in Tucson, Arizona, also Bisbee, Arizona, and we performed a lot of plays in those areas, Maricopa County where Phoenix is, and Pima County where Tucson is, and in northern Mexico. We did bilingual theater, and we performed in Hermosillo, in Agua Prieta, and Nogales, and Cananea. And it's interesting because we had people in our group who were Mexican actors, and they had friends on the other side of the border, so they set up all these gigs. So we had places to go, and then they worked with us. This was back before it became impossible to do that. They could no sooner do that than fly to the moon now because of ice and the INS requirements and all that. They could not do that. But at that point, it was pretty easy to go back and forth, and it was a good experience for everybody to be able to do that. It sure showed why it's important to have a free border. And I couldn't stress any more, how important it is for cultural awareness of each other, for sure. And then I ended up coming to Texas, and I worked I got a job at the University of Texas at the medical center in Galveston with environmental toxicology, doing theater, believe it or not. And the kind of theater we did was Augusto Boal's Theater of the Oppressed, which is a very socially conscious kind of theater. It's about people taking their problems and turning them into a show that they do for their own community to try and figure out how to solve it. And the things we were working with were pollution problems and sicknesses that were part of your exposure to pollution. And I did that for years and years and years, and all over the state, all over Louisiana, and in Mississippi. That's the kind of theater I did here, pretty much. And also, my wife and I were, Michelle, we coordinated the Amnesty International U.S. branch number 23, Houston, Human Rights Theater, for close to 6 years. And we did stuff that was looking at, the human rights of writers in other countries, the human rights of writers in our own country, the human rights of people in prison, and the death penalty. And we did a lot of stuff around the death penalty because Texas is big on the death penalty. And then, this writing was going on during that period of time, but it was not more formally produced or anything like that. So that's sort of my bio. I mean, there's a bunch of other things, but they're not that interesting to me even. I can bring it up for other people. But the thing that that I wanted to talk about most of was how I put together theater and writing, and especially theater and poetry, and why I think this poem script idea is a good connection, a good match, and kind of enhances the power of both forms, rather than making a garbled mess that you can't figure out what's going on. I think it's pretty easy to see. And the book, Bye Bye No Fly Zone, the meaning of that phrase has a lot to do with the world we live in today, and the fact that, a no-fly zone is supposed to be a safe spot. You can go there. That means that jets and bombers don't fly over it, that no one's going to strafe you or kill you. But there are no such things anymore. Not really. And you look at people, especially places like Syria, where they tried to set them up, and then the people would just get squashed by another bombing or something like that. And we have that problem even in the so-called developed world in the West. Only it's a little more subtle, but it's the same thing. It's an erosion of rights, an erosion of your will to resist those erosions. So that's what that title's about. And do you want me to go on with a little more about the book?
Yeah, so let's jump into the book real quick. Talk a little bit about your idea for the cover design of it. I don't know how
Well,
well it's going to show up on here, but I do have a copy of the book here. Uh, and for anyone who's kind of seeing it on Twitter, I posted the images of the books on Twitter as well. Yeah, kind of walk me through the idea of this cover because you were the one
well,
who pitched it to me. I think.
yeah, I did. I talked to my, the artist I work with extensively about the book, and she's a good friend of mine. She happens to also be my kid. That's why she's such a good friend. And so we've worked together for a lot over the years doing things. And she read the book, and the piece that jumped out at her was Hour of the Wolf, and that was based on the WTO. Some stuff that actually went down during the WTO in Seattle, 1999, and it was a great big street demonstration that lasted about a week. But 3 days of it were a pitched battle between police and demonstrators, and I happened to live right in the middle of it because it happened on Capitol Hill, and that's my neighborhood. And it was, right there, and we were in it. And she asked me about it, what it was like, what's it like to be out in the street, and there's, a big phalanx of police facing you, and you're facing them, and you got your reasons for being there, and their reason for being there is to make sure you leave, or at least you get contained. And it's always tense, and it's always, you don't know what's going to happen really. And so I told her about what it was like to see the police in their line, and they, what they looked like. They looked kind of like bats. They had bat wings because they were wearing these ponchos over their armor because it was raining, and because it's Seattle, of course, it's always raining. And then she got that image, and then what's it like to be crouched down, sitting on the street in a line while they're there. And she said, I got that. I can see that. And I'm going to put it on a wall like it's a mural. So she put it on the wall instead of, because it's done. It happened. It's not happening right now. But this is a commemoration of what happened. And if you look on the back cover, there are some other things there that, other things that you would see on walls in that period of time. In fact, there's something way before that time, that Z.
Yeah.
It's from a long time ago, a movie called Z, He Lives. It's a Greek movie.
Mm-hmm.
Costas Mavras made a long time ago. And that Z became a symbol during the late 60s even. So it's got there's a whole chronology of resistance on that wall. And not everyone would catch that. I mean, real younger people wouldn't know maybe what the Z meant, because this is pretty far back.
Yeah.
But the A is pretty common. Have you seen that around?
Yeah. But I would imagine anyone of any generation could get the image that's going on here in the front cover. I mean, we're seeing it even today with the protests that have been happening very recently. So these images that we're seeing here, they're very continuous images. I mean, it's not something that has gone away, especially with how brutal the police have been, and just how egregious their tactics have been.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the only actual difference is we can see it in real time as opposed to back then we didn't have that technology. There weren't cell phones out
No, we did.
in '99 just filming the protests. So we see it a bit more immediate today.
There were a lot of George Floyds that were killed with nobody making a video of it with their phone. And so, I mean, and no one could say that happened. I saw it. You can say, oh, sure, you saw it. Maybe it did happen, but you can't. It's your word against the perpetrators. There's nothing you can do about it. But now, when something like that happens, there's a lot of people watching. There's eyes all over the place on it. And it has changed the whole power dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. We still haven't seen much change in the way of police. I mean, they're still getting away with it. So uh, it's a fight that's happening.
Yeah, you're right. They are still getting away with it. It's the hardest thing to pin on anybody there is, almost.
I mean, yeah, and we're seeing that now. I mean, we have actual videotaped evidence, and there's very little consequences happening to police officers uh, who murder black citizens. Like it's a rare occurrence to see a cop held responsible for that.
That's true. That's
So,
too true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But anyway, that's where that image came from.
okay.
And it's like a series of images more than just one, but that one big one, of course.
Yeah. So it's got a real powerful image on the front, and it says something, even though it was based off of an incident in 1999. It's a very powerful image today. Uh, in that of what we're seeing uh, today, all over the news with the police killings. So it's an image that's probably going to stay with us for longer than we would like. But
Yeah, probably.
but let's go. Let's move into the actual content of the book. And you mentioned "Hour of the Wolf," and I have the poem here. And you do mention the WTO 1999. But kind of go through and I guess just pick out a couple of pieces that you feel are that get to the core of this book, like and talk about those real quick, like what makes what kind of brings this book all together.
Okay. Well, that's one of them. That's certainly one of them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, because
the
we talk about resistance here on the back on the back blurb.
Yeah, the whole idea of the resistance that people put up at that particular demonstration or series, that week long act of resistance against what was going to be imposed on the whole world by a cartel. I call them cartel. I mean, just the leaders of the capitalist world were going to create rules that would benefit their class and really cause working class people in all cultures to have their rights deteriorate, to have the environmental quality of their life deteriorate. And it was all going to be codified in a legal system that you couldn't do much about without being fined by the WTO. And people didn't realize until just before they were going to ratify all this at that meeting what was going on. Is it sounded like a good idea. It's neoliberal global trade. It's the kind of thing that's making progress all over the world. They weren't talking about the downsides. And the downsides became clearer and clearer, and then the resistance grew. And that incident that is the central narrative incident in that poem is just a small piece of it. The whole thing, it's got a lot of other things that feed into it too, though, about the philosophy, the economics, and the idea that there is a group, and I have it personified as the Big Bad Who, and the Big Bad Who is everywhere. It's not just one person. It's easy to say, "Oh, that's Donald Trump." No, it's not Donald Trump. It could be, but he's no more or less that than anything else that's in that position doing what he's doing. And the people that are resisting it are little people. They have no power except through solidarity and what they give to each other. And it's so difficult to go out and face raw power with nothing but that. You're a very vulnerable person, and all you've got are these people around you, and this issue that you really care about. But I was just trying to convey in that how how uplifting it was to be part of that. And it doesn't say anything about the outcome. The outcome, the WTO still exists. It didn't get ratified in the format that Bill Clinton and Tony Blair and people like that wanted at the time. But it still exists, and it's still doing damage. But it's also doing progress. It's very complicated, and the progress is mostly not positive. But there are some positive things in certain areas that certain people do, and I don't mean the leaders or the capitalist class, but the people that are just doing work do end up in some cases having a better life. So it's a very complicated thing to pick it apart and take out what's toxic and leave in what isn't. And I hope that comes across in the context of that poem, which to me was like writing a movie. I mean, I really felt like this is cinematic while I was doing it. And that's why I could never read that by myself. This is something has about 4 voices in it, and it would have to be done in a group thing.
Okay.
But the true core of the book, though, is Bye Bye No Fly Zone.
Okay.
And it's like I said, it's about the fact that resistance is necessary, even though you may not win, to protect your soul from what's going to happen otherwise. And you're not just protecting yourself; you're protecting other people while you're doing it. But there is no place where you can go hide from it. You cannot hide and say, I choose not to get involved in this anymore. I have to get involved in this. We're required to. It's coming to us, and we need to address it. And the gun thing in Bye Bye No Fly Zone is something that had been on my mind a lot too, because all the gun stuff that's been happening in our culture for God knows, I can't remember a time when it wasn't happening. But now we know about every one of these events in every part of the country happening, and like clockwork almost. And it's been a while since there's been a mass shooting, and I'm glad. But I thought, when I was writing this about the pulse and about that concert in Paris, and these people are just out having a good time, and suddenly this happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I both were in Houston when the shooting in Houston happened. Santa Fe.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't live that far away from it.
Yeah, I was in Manville at the time, so I wasn't that far away from Santa Fe myself. So it's a very close feeling to know that a mass shooting just took place, 5-10 miles away from you.
Yeah,
it's a very scary feeling. So, okay.
And then as far as another thing that would be key to this book would be that poem Right Down Here, and it's a pretty long one. It's a 3-part piece, and it's kind of a compendium of everything that went into the book. In many ways, you'll find it all in there, but it's emotionally most distilled in Bye Bye No Fly Zone.
Okay. So in this book, you blend. You do something called poem scripts. So let's actually get into that real quick. So can you define just what a poem script is and what that process is like?
Well, I'll try. It's a hybrid form. A lot of people talk about writing hybrids now. It's thrown around a lot, and what I normally see is it's mostly a prose piece, and then interspersed with that will be some poetry that kind of links prose pieces together, or sometimes it's the opposite. It's lyric poetry linked by prose pieces, and and then occasionally a nonfiction section. I wanted to create something that, and I did not make this up. I made the name, but not the actual doing of it. Something that took spoken word conventions and poetic technique and connected it with the text format you use with theater, which has dialogue headings and stage directions. The stage directions have physical actions or directions for creating images in them, and then interactive dialogue between characters. And you put all this together, and this would be a poem script. The stage directions aren't really stage directions because they're meant to be able to, you can read them. You don't have to translate it into action on stage. They're going into the inner life of the characters, which you'll never see in the play. They don't do that. They'll make connections between or among the pieces in the book. So these are connected in some way. They introduce flashbacks or future progressions. And they speculate about things. They just speculate. You have, especially there's a character in this book called the Object Monster. The Object Monster is invisible. Now, all the characters are invisible because it's not a play, but this one's invisible. It's not there. The characters don't even know it's there. So this Object Monster is really described in the stage directions only. You won't find it anywhere else, but it's in there. And so, especially in that piece where about memory, where AKA Doc Benway and Lady Striga are talking together and doing magic, and this Object Monster is part of it too. In the next book, in Dire Moon Cartoons, this whole thing goes a little bit further with a piece called The Baby's Rookie Year. And it's got not just stage directions like I just described, but also some philosophical digressions and historical references and political diatribes and even footnotes. And I've never done that before. I mean, and it's something that you would just sit down and read. You never perform that part of it ever. But that's in the next book. So this is kind of a progression. And that's the most recent one I've ever written.
Okay.
And where did it come from? That whole idea. Well, I used to do a lot of spoken word with a group called Beat Directions, which is sort of what drew me to trying to find a connection with Weasel Press. I noticed you call Weasel Press a beat-influenced, beat-informed press. And so I thought, well, this is probably a better home for what I'm trying to do than many other places. And we did performance art, and with a group called the Exit Artists Collective. And we did a lot of street theater. And that's where the whole emphasis on physical action, physicality, and dialogue came from. And then when I moved to Tucson, and we got hooked up with a group called Theater Degree Zero, and founded by a guy named Jack Halstead. And we ended up connecting with Juan Felipe Herrera, who was just a few years ago the Poet Laureate of the United States. Now, he wasn't at the time. This was about 10, 15 years before that happened. And this guy is, as far as I'm concerned, he's probably the most wildly creative person writing in the United States. I mean, his recent stuff is just like his older stuff. He never lost that. He's always pushing the envelope and going somewhere else with his work. And we did a thing called Memorias from an Exile's Book of the Future, and we worked with him to take his text, which is a long poem, and convert it into movement and songs. And so we had some of his text, we had songs, we had a dance company basically doing movement. And he had never done this before with this text. But he's the kind of guy who would just say, hey, that sounds like fun, let's try it. And rather, because some poets would just say, "Whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing with my work?" He wanted to see what would happen to his work after we did it. And we also did a thing called El Exilio de Quintino, which is from a book called Acrylica that he wrote. And we took 10 of his poems and put them together in a show. And they were never intended to be a show, but they became one. And we did the same process with that, where the text we'd lose a lot of the text and it would become people moving, people chanting, music, things of that nature. And all that really, was moving in the direction of a poem script. And I don't know if there's anything more to say about it, except the whole idea of how the text can evaporate and be absorbed by other aspects of a performance without losing any of the meaning of the text was what we got out of working with Mr. Herrera. And I just thought I'd like to keep doing this. And I wanted to give people the experience of reading dramatic stuff, which no one ever gets. Because if you ask people, what kind of stuff do you read? Now, if someone likes poetry, they read poetry. If someone likes fiction, they read fiction. You'll never find anyone who isn't into producing theater who reads plays. And a lot of it has to do with the format. You look at this format, and it's set up to be produced. And you have to do a different sort of imagining to see what it would be if it were actually happening in front of you. And I was trying to come up with something that worked that magic in a different way, so that you didn't have to physicalize what you were reading so much as just read it and understand that what you're doing is getting a shorthand. And the shorthand is telling you things about narrative that you normally wouldn't find in a poem, perhaps, or at least not that way. And telling you things about a reference to something else that you would never see in a script, not that way. The way poetry refers to something else, well, you wouldn't see that in a script that way, because it's usually people talking, or the stage directions are just physical logistics. So I've tried to put it together to give people an opportunity to have that experience. And also, I enjoy writing and to give people a platform for different ways of experiencing a text. I mean, here you have a text that you can sit down by yourself and read, like any book. Then you have a text that you can get together with people and multi-voice and read to each other. And that's another way of enjoying it. And then you could do a performance, a staged reading, so to speak, or just a sit-down reading in front of an audience. Or you could have an actual no-script performance. And that would change considerably, because you'd lose a lot of the stuff that would be in the stage directions. But you have all these different platforms for entering this work. And that was something that was important to me, too. So that's about it. I can't say too much more about how it works. If people wanted to see how it looks, other than what I'm doing, they should go to Kathy Acker. And Kathy Acker wrote a book called Blood and Guts in High School back in the 90s. And it's really one of the most innovative things I've ever in my life seen. It has every kind of form in it, and they're all integrated, so that it all makes sense. It's not like stuff was just dropped into the book. It all flows. And that's where I got the idea, this is what a real hybrid looks like. It's not like any of the hybrids I normally see in a journal or something like that. And then, of course, Juan Felipe Herrera's work, same thing. Because he wrote a thing called Noche Verde Nuclear, which is kind of a dystopia. And it is a multi-voiced verse poem, but not like your normal verse poems. So it's something I would recommend people to get to. And then as far as poets that work in this vein, sort of, John Berryman. Okay, that's an old school poet, but he did some very avant-garde work a long time ago with 77 Dream Song. That was an influence on this. And Michael McClure of the Beats and Bob Kaufman of the Beats, those two in particular. Etheridge Knight, African American poet, Gil Scott Heron. Everybody sort of knows his name because he Yusef Komunyakaa, Linton Kwesi Johnson from the UK, Muta Baruka from Jamaica, Saul Williams from Seattle, KRS-One. That's, I think, perhaps the most profound hip-hop artist ever. He was one of the very first. Stevie Smith, Jane Cortez, Wanda Coleman, Henry Rollins, Patti Smith, all those people. And then there's some jazz musicians that really were an influence on me too, because they also write, and sometimes they perform the two together. Cecil Taylor, Ambrose Akinmusiri, and Robert Glasper. I really like all those people. You know, it's hard to separate out where you got something, who you got it from, and how you transmuted it, made it your own before you started using it. But those are all the different, and there's a lot of theater references too, but I'm not going to, babble about that all night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something to be said for, like, the authors that we read or experience, or the poets that we read or experience, or even the movies. I mean, it all influences us in some way or fashion. And to kind of speak on multiverse poetry, we're seeing a lot of that happening in slam poetry. There's a lot of performances that are going down where you have multiple poets, and it's a form of protest for them. And it's been a while. I mean, I haven't been in Houston, so I haven't really seen what Right About Now is doing at the moment. But Right About Now is good about finding new voices and bringing up experimental voices, or bringing up loud activist voices, and voices that we need and are necessary in resistance work. So, definitely Right About Now is a good resource for anyone who is, like, just trying to get into poetry, or just trying to find a way to, like, channel their voice. There's a lot of poets that they bring in, and a lot of poets that just have really good work. I know Weasel Press has done a book that was multi-voice as well. David Cowan, a few years ago, did a book called The 7 Yards of Sorrow, in which he gave stories to the dead, so to speak. He talked about the graveyards of Galveston, and just how many times bodies had to be moved, and how there are some bodies that used to have gravestones, but they no longer have gravestones. He goes through the whole history of the graveyards of Galveston, Texas. And I did a performance with him at the Friendswood Public Library, and he got me, and there's a couple of other people, and we would voice these characters for a poem or two that he had. And I wish we had recorded it, but unfortunately we didn't. It's not a common thing, but it's becoming more common, especially with how experimental poetry is becoming, and how necessary it's becoming in poetry.
Right About Now actually performs here in Well, they don't anymore, COVID, but prior to that, twice a month at the Proletariat Pub, they pretty much curated the poetry program. Mm-hmm. And they brought people in from Houston and people in from other cities too, actually.
Yeah. When I was the president for the Gulf Coast Poets, I got the main guy that was putting it together. I got him to read for us. So it was interesting just learning how they coordinate all of that. And speaking of COVID, are you finding it difficult to kind of adapt this book? Like have you decided to do an online format at all with this book, or?
Oh, I'd like to.
Okay.
I don't actually. See, the whole thing is to stop the writing process, which I can't turn off very easily, um, and and learn new technology. It's hard. It's hard for me to do that, and that's been a big problem for me. But I would love to do that, and I actually have some people who would be willing to multi-voice a bunch of the stuff from Bye Bye No Fly Zone, and it would be great to do that. But I imagine, based on my limited experience with all this, that Zoom would be the easiest thing to do it with.
Yeah, so you could use Zoom. The only problem with Zoom is you'd have to pay for it if it's longer than 45 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like I think it's like $15 a month. Discord, what we're using now is good. But I don't know of the like the housing capabilities. With Zoom you can have an audience. Um, Still learning Discord, so I'm not sure how well that translates to that program. Google Hangouts would be another option too if you use Gmail. But it's interesting with how COVID happened and Zoom became the big program that everyone uses, and you have to pay for it now. And you probably had to pay for it before, but it's
Actually, I don't think you did have to pay for it originally.
Really.
I mean, for the basic,
Yeah.
no bells and whistles or anything.
Yeah, and that's probably with that 45-minute time frame limit too, because I was trying, like I've been trying to figure out ways to do poetry readings online, and most of the ones that I've attended are all through Zoom, but these things are like 2 hours long, and it's like I don't have $15 to pay Zoom right now, so so finding an alternative is what I'm being forced to do. Especially with how COVID hit and being in and out of a job this whole year has been.
Well, you know something? Some of the folks that you would work with might want to invest in that process too, though. Like I would.
Yeah.
I mean, if nobody has enough money to run the whole thing, and this way, you could get enough capital to make purchase something a little more than the basic that would allow you to archive something that lasted a couple of hours.
Okay. Well, that's something that we'll have to look into.
Yeah. No, I think that's not a bad idea at all. It's just a thought. Just a thought.
Yeah. I mean.
But hold that thought.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to give it some thought in the future, just because it's in order to kind of keep doing what I'm doing, I'm having to find ways to try and adapt. And normally, this kind of thing that we're doing here, we'd be sitting in front of a couple of people at a cafe or something, just kind of talking, and then you do a reading. But because of COVID, we're not doing those right now. And that's something that I talked about very recently, with just how COVID has affected small press sales. Like, it's completely gone from the touring side to we have to figure out what to do online. So it's very much been a year of trying to change and adapt and learn new ways, and become inventive with those new ways.
The Roundhouse Theater is it's a good theater back east. They're doing an Adrienne Kennedy festival right now, 4 of her plays. She's really, really cool and not done very often. She's a avant-garde African American playwright started writing in the 60s, and she did stuff that was so far ahead of its time. And they're doing it all through a subscription to an online festival. And it's going to stream, and you can see any one of these 4 things whenever you want to, up until February, mid-February, something like that. And it's not expensive. Now, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know whether they're doing it you'll see a bunch of actors in little boxes, or you'll actually see the show, and the people maybe were a pod, and they're all okay. Nobody's tested positive, and they live together. I don't know how they do that. I know some bands do that, and that way they can actually perform together rather than breaking it up. Because it's awfully hard to do theater, A, without live presence. That screws everything up, and you'll never get that online anyway. But B, if you can't even have the actors in the same place while they're doing it, I mean, it's very strange. But I'm going to do that. I just want to see how it works out. And because, theater's having the same problem poetry's having. It's anything where presence is important is really hurting right now.
Yeah, and we're seeing it with just about every artistic endeavor. I mean, music is having issues, poetry is having issues, just authors not being able to go on author tours. Like that's
Yeah.
hurting them too. Um, and we're seeing
Like I was going to take the book. I was going to take the book to the Texas League of Texas Writers. They have a couple of book fairs, and I actually got booths. And I thought I got a bunch of copies of Bye Bye No Fly Zone. I'm going to take it there, and they called off both of them, of course. And it was, there's no other thing like that in Texas. It's a pretty big one, and one was in San Antonio, the other was Dallas, and it's I don't know when they're going to do it again. I mean, I'd like to say they're going to do it next spring, but I'll bet you they don't, because I don't think it's going to be ready. I think COVID's still going to be a real factor in our lives for a couple of years, really.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of the small publishers I know. We were just kind of talking about how convention sales have kind of all but vanished, pretty much, because a lot of cons have just closed up, and they've closed up most of the beginning of next year too. So it's not. This is definitely not going to go away soon. So we had all better learn to adapt by then.
Yeah, that is no kidding. That is, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult thing because I enjoy the live stuff so much.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean,
but this is okay too. This is okay too.
Yeah, I know there's slam poets who are doing they're doing their readings on Zoom right now. Andrea Gibson, they did a reading just a month ago, and I mean it was $10 to join, which fine, pay the $10, and it's you got to sit there and listen to them read from their new book and all that. So it didn't. I mean, it's not quite the live atmosphere. It's a bit more comfortable though.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah.
I mean, I know for me, I was like comparing it to the Buddy Wakefield show I saw a year or so ago at Rudyard's pub. I was like, man, sitting at home and eating my own food is kind of nice rather than being at a bar right now.
Yeah.
So there are some perks to it.
Some, yeah, I know, but it's the thing that drew me to theater in the first place, and poets performing was presence and the connection between the person performing or the performers and the audience. It's a totally different state of being than you get anywhere else in life, and I do miss that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to recreate that. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean,
but I'll,
yeah. I mean,
it'll come back. It'll come back.
Yeah. I mean, there is some part of me that would like to hit a stage again because it's been a while since I've actually done any kind of live reading. I think the taco joint was the last one that I did. So
really.
Yeah. Like there just hasn't been time or just a moment up here to do much of anything.
And I wonder if Tacos Our Way is still there. Like I haven't checked since then, and because I don't know how much of their business they could keep if they just did takeout.
They're still going strong. From what I read on their Facebook, they're still going strong. I think they're trying to franchise their business, So you might see more of them popping up soon.
Well, that was very good, actually.
Yeah, they're that's the one thing I do miss is tacos my way because they really do have some really kick ass tacos.
Yeah. But it's not over in my actual area, so I don't get over there much. But it would be worth it. Yeah, I should do that again. I
Yeah,
should actually
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Would you want me to read something?
Yeah, so it's getting towards that time. Let's go on ahead and I know you've got a couple of pieces that we talked about that you wanted to read from. So yeah, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. Um, this is one that's sort of in the first half of the book, and I picked it because it's not a poem script and much easier to do with just one person. And it's called Like Angels Killed in Combat, but it does introduce the characters that are in the poem scripts. They're in here. So this is Like Angels Killed in Combat. Like a curse, 3 times spit and holler, go pick poor Robin clean, or a blessing, like this suicide gene, a fake mojo for posterity, maybe so? Takes teeth, takes some real devotion, like angels killed in combat, may be born back into our skins, our own grief, but wingless, always disremembering their formers, their famous covers, unchained faces, like it all went down before somewhere in an unlicensed fairy tale, like it's all just that much more hacked, garbled binary schisms, failed to thrive prophecy, you hustle, Miss Chan, aka Crazy Janie, fresh off her latest fave pyre, her ayahuasca punch out. Up there, stumping on your bully box, a storm drift out of history, inside your throat, shouting, steady bull ragging the lumpin', or yet, and still, there's always, already, the honorable hegemony, Bates, if you please, that autonomous, that rascal captain's hammer, that eponymous Texas, coefficient of ruination, just back in from his own iconosphere, tender immortalities, aka Oxycontin country. No fears he, and throbs he do. Listen, how he hoodoo so deep, so much, so often, down the long valley of show us some skull, daddy do. Or so says Mr. Rougarou, all bound up in a snit. When he drops Boku mana on the whole damn crew, and so you are too cool to clamor, eh, Mr. Bates? So go throw us all some more of your secret special days, your syllogistic sliders, dull ass joke of an ephus. Now you're chucking it, sidearm, all that low down bunk, and still, or yet, moot as death, your fairy glamour, freak folk, tin-eared, legions of frou-frou, rapid volley, dark matter, penetration. Oh, that fucking hurts so good. Bang on it just a little, or just a lot of it. Sometimes just watches over us, really. Like so much haze, like so much buzz and clang. So go on, dine out on it, why don't you, Mr. Right Reverend RSD? It's what you do. And you got you a red hot splitter. You got some real tricky smoke, Mach 2, maybe so. You got sang Freud aplenty out there on the mound. But for me, you always gonna be just pale glint, just glimmer down low. Just trust and all wound up in the big who's dirty shadow. For we, to us, for me, and we are here yet. We are all here yet. Carefully curated though we may be, but deaf to you, we still are, and we are all still here yet. We are all still here with you, still, just faking the funk. You are, we are, while our ghosts, never shriven, never finished, remember everything and forget everything. All shook up, full of doubt, and memory, poor memory. Kiss your own son goodbye, my dear. Bubbles blown a ways away. Your bubbles all blown down. Your bubble slips its capsule into even deeper hoodoo. Such a sad, weak grip. Such an empty net. Such a thin, scattered capture of.
Hmm.
So that one, like I said, that's sort of a by way of an introduction for some of the characters, the other, but also some of the ideas. And I got to admit, if you asked me to explain this, I'd have to say I ain't sure. But I like doing it. That's all I can say. And it sounds nice sometimes, and it's got some of the ideas about our determination to not be co-opted, and how easy it is to be co-opted, and how easy it is to delude yourself that you're saying something when you're not, or saying something when you think you're saying, but it's actually something else. And you have to be very careful about that. And the more I talk about this, the more confused I get, so I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
And now the next one I'd like to do is the title piece. And I'm going to try and do this even though it's a poem script. But it would only have two voices in it anyway. Poem scripts have to have somebody read the stage directions because they're really very pertinent. And so there'd be a voice doing that, and then a Ms. Chan. And so when I come to a stage direction, I'm going to say direction, and at the end of the direction, I'll say ended direction, sort of like parentheses.
Okay.
And if I don't say anything, it's Ms. Chan speaking. This is
Okay.
Called Bye Bye No Fly Zone or Chan. Direction. Ms. Chan spins the cylinders of her 7 Gastundum. Ms. Chan drags the Right Reverend RSV center stage, flips him prone, pins him down with her knees, and this is where it goes from there. End direction. Me and Nina Scalapina spin all night. Direction. With slur and honk in tenor register. End direction. Buff Acropolis. And everybody's doing up a rave up. Every suture, every fairy grin, every heart anatomical accoutrement, totally suspect, totally beyond the ken of scope or probe, of nanograms, of thick wit. So we twirl and spin and twirl until dysfunct channel baby 2 years in geometry when I was like all stinking hyper. Direction. You know, ventricular nat disazu pits memoria high school, like the gone and gorgeous sight shot and I always want to become. End direction. Like, whoa. Direction. Big gulp gulp of breath. End direction. Like, I must remember to breathe like inside the motion. Like, remember to direction, big breath out. Sigh of the melancholic pain balloon. End direction. Woo-wee. And then, Dysfunct Channel International, Shooter Baby waves his conscious coma, waves his big ass cannon. Awful big and lovely too. Big ass cannon grabs my bop top like a promise, and he laughs through big shiny cinematic teeth like this. Direction, laughs, digital screen, hollowed out bottom, end direction. Like he snides. So where is my baby, baby? Like any question like that question deserves a brave story. And then he utters new distempers. Live meat don't need this kind of stuff. And then Dysfunct Channel Shooter Baby spits a love song through that rack of shiny big teeth, like shabby Technicolor in its sad decline, clamped together in a sex growl. Direction. Growl. The cat in the moon gives it up like a dog. End direction. He sings, each ghost nearly finished. And then, he pumps 10 rounds into the ballroom like hot, smoking into space like at the wall, or all the layers of eyes, or the space behind the wall of eyes, like hot, hot. You feel the burn go by your face, see? Like now, the wall begins, the whale begins to wake. Like now, all make shrines, pray, blubber in their cameras. So I get up, and Nina gets up, and we spin around and dance until the cops come. This one cop tells me to stop. Hey, park it! Direction, laugh, pseudo-bulbar incongruent jag. End direction. Like Nina stops, fights the floor, hands locked behind her neck. But I can't stop, don't stop, can't stop. I am too jacked up to stop, and I twirl myself around and around. Laugh, spin, laugh. Direction, laugh. P-I-G-J again. End direction. And then, like he makes me stop. Then he grabs my arms. Then he grabs and holds my arms against me. You tease, I tase, says he. Holds my arms against me. Then I stop. No fear yet, but my blood gets all heavy. Sinks down like octanes of stop. Spread, sleep, like dead forevers. Like no more fun on the Autobahn. Like my blood changes back to fear mostly. Changes all the juice, all the charge, all the motion in my blood back to fear. Direction. Unsteady riff on anguish, and then lamentation. Then another very short P-I-J. End direction. See? Only mostly. Like when I got to move. When I got to move. It's just not cool. Like jammed inside a sleep coma, the mama, like her baby. Face down in the rain, strewn across the lungs of a cold sea, on the bone edge of, don't worry, your babies are always already embalmed, born to be like that, on the stone edge of uncoil, unmother, on the scary edge, unseen, forever, where charge and juice and motion go, not cool, not ever, keep it, hard, haze over, think it do, freeze and sleep, like that, wrap the mama in a shroud. Direction. Ms. Chan spins the cylinders again like she empties each cylinder. Rounds hit the floor. Reverb of echo. Runs barrel of the 357 down the right Reverend R's back. Light, empty and pro forma as a social kiss. Unyielding. Occasionally tried, but only provisionally true. Ultimately, her mouth winks back at her. Her motions lack commitment. Ms. Chan, too, makes her own soul shrine. But she's too cool to just say it. So don't get all smug on us, Ms. Chan, or drop your guard. Still and yet, you're just another little who like all of us, on the prowl or on the lam, while the big who truly hallows such discipline, such Buto-like restraint. The big bad who don't never just give away no reprieves. End. Direction. Her babies move, against haze, inside freeze, room to room unmoored. Her babies move, lids open, unmoored from memory by heat and muscle, move and go and drift by burnt synapse, ashes, go way away. Every dendrite all jiggy on its own pyre. In this world, wither on the brink. Mama sad, mama, in this world, electric glides into morning.
Okay.
And I could do one more.
Yeah.
You got time?
Yeah, we have time for one more, and then we'll have to call it from there.
Okay. As you can tell, I don't get to do this very often anymore.
It's okay. With COVID happening, and I'm sure with readings kind of dying down everywhere, it's tough to even be able to find an audience to read at all right now.
Yeah, everybody, and yeah, I should be wearing a mask, I feel like, while I'm doing this. Well, this last one's called Son House Talks to Me, and it's a conversation with Edward James Sunhouse Jr., the father of the Delta Blues, who was a famous preacher and a primary influence on Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and a whole bunch of other people. And he wrote this song, John the Revelator, that's mentioned in here. Sunhouse talks to me. No name on my lips, no name on my tongue, no name for a no-name river, no name for nameless, lived-out lives to come. Feel this deep Sarasvati in my pulse. Feel this rush of breath into me, unto thee, this quickness in a bad time, this planet where God does not live. So heavy, sad shells of the dead, all names scraped clean by moon. We feel a pull. Oh, baby sister, feel so soon, so much more of it. Oh, light foot, push a pedal down and into it. Way up through a bone thing. Baptist, kick it over, steal away. It's time again. It's bred in the bone to bite back, to whirl past this lug of body. We need more than body to stroke, to open. Love in the genes. We need more cruise, velocity against the drag of thick stale air, hard skin road, oh mother of salt, flat, empty, of dust, bare, of fanged beast, of bitter fowl, of wide jagged sky, but scared too of so much blue above us like a cowl. Say now, will no one lip up? Will no one sing to the mama? Then we all die in between, suffer too much this bad time in between. Too soon, this dry, sad and ache we inhabit in a bad time, this planet where God does not live. Say, magician, my Mr. Big Bad Who, right now, take a look-see, crack it clean. Twa Corbies primed to gang and dine lay spooky thick upon thee. Your shibboleth be broken, begotten of the dead, all smokin', ain't got no shimmer left, no stars in hand, got a whiff of way too gone, no hope to sell, no scars to dream upon. Instead, by thy patience, instead, by thy labor, unzip and stream right into a mirror of Godscape, like John the Revelator. Say, magician, who's your daddy? Ain't a gonna walk that high bar, all shoeless for a wage of woe? No more goon shuffle, not no more. No more Katie bar the door. It's all same for thee and thy imago. No scheming, no more weeping like old zoo lions in a cave. No overmind hard upon us like a vice to chain us up, to bind us tight. Don't leave no hungry ghosts, no fright with beyond the pale, to gnash, to rage, to overstay and rail against. No driving wheel aimed blind, broke off at the neck. No knocked out, crawled down, no more. Nothing gonna wreck that way, no more. Say, magician, say it right today. What's what? Who's who? This time around. Cough it up, quick. Say, magician, say. And that's all, folks.
All right. So, well, thank you for taking part in this and for being one of the first people to do it. So,
Cool.
a lot of times with these first time podcast like things, it's a bit difficult to get all the technicalities done correctly. So, thank you for taking part and for being patient.
Oh, I thank you for being patient with me, because you think you might not know the technicalities. I know a whole lot less. And this is all, something I just kind of feel my way. Usually it's a lot harder. This is actually pretty easy to use. If I had my camera online, we'd have everything. But I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Like I said, though, if you want to produce some of the theater in that book, that second book, we could do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely an idea. Let's talk more about that because I think we'll have a lot of tools to our disposal. So yeah, when we're kind of done here in about a week, let's kind of get on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it was nice spending time with you, and I hope things continue to go well.
Yeah, and stay safe out there. I know Texas is like COVID central at the moment, or Or
it is, and the governor has put the kibosh on the mayor of El Paso, who tried to do a lockdown. El Paso is floating in COVID. There's a whole lot of people dying there all the time now,
yeah,
and the governor won't allow anyone down. And the attorney general is suing the mayor and the city council, and it's just really crazy. I mean, I don't know what the only way to get the whole economy back to normal is to actually do something drastic and then ease off in a smart way with important things first, and then, I hate to say it, bars come last. I hate to say that because, it's a place that everybody likes to go, but that's not really the way to do it. You can't just have this stuff happen like normal, expect it to go away. It's not going to go away. And herd immunity is going to hurt us.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, stay safe out there, and I'll let you know when this gets up on YouTube.
All right. Send me a link.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good one.
All right, I'll see you then.